to their members by 1,500 ambassadors across Denmark. And Jacob will tell us more about that in a second. And he will, of course, touch on Zetland's story, but focus on the concrete tools behind building a strong community. He will talk about 30 minutes with the presentation, and if you do have any questions, you can write them down into the chat window and I will have a look at them. We'll go through them after his presentation, so we will have about 40 minutes for discussion afterwards. And the session, as Lisa mentioned, will be recorded and uploaded on YouTube, just for your background. So, Jacob, this is your stage.
Yes, thank you. I'm just writing in the chat that people should also tell you if there are any problems with the quality of anything, because I happen to be at home right now and not at the office. And generally, one of the tools of Zetland historically has been live journalism, and this is also a bit of a live experiment. Because as I said, I'm at home, and also there is some of the presentation I don't have slides on, because I thought it was, to be honest, tomorrow that we were doing this. So so let me see if I can start by sharing the screen. Let's see here. If this is working. Paulina, does this look right? Yes.
Yeah, super.
All right, so I will begin by explaining just, the core ideas behind the, what Zetland is, and then I'll get to some of our key points in building community. As I said, some of the things will not be tied to slide booking, and then we'll get to the questions, and maybe we'll get to them even faster than 30 minutes, because that's the most interesting part. So, it's a digitally born digital newspaper in Denmark. We were launched in 2015, and we got financing in 15, and we launched, to be precise, in March of 2016. And as I write, we are proud to call ourselves the most successful fully digital newspaper in Scandinavia, in that we are a digital operation. We also focus the general public. That's why we call ourselves a newspaper. And of course, that's the worst thing you can do from this point, is to do a niche, but try to do something that has to do with general interest and telling important stories about society. Those are the business models that are struggling, you can say, worldwide. But what we decided to do is was to first of all think in terms of membership, which has to do with relationships, and then I'm going to talking a lot about how to build relationships. But that it only makes sense to talk about community if you have a very clear mission that you are able to communicate in different ways, and that's a very important point, because sometimes I think people talk about building communities without being very, very clear about the values that they want to build the community around. Not only being clear, they have to be clear to yourself, of course, but they are the actual fuel for your community. And I think one of the dangers, or one of the difficulties, is to try to build this machine before you actually before you have your ideas communicated. As it says, a part of our mission is to talk to a young audience. I think that we have many reasons for that. I think it's more fun, but also from a business standpoint, it's more valuable, because our audience, the audience we want to reach, are the ones that the old business pretty much lost, the old newspaper business. We have a lot of members that are also in the older generation, but typically we are the second or third subscription journalism service that they have, typically a print newspaper on the side. And of course, we think it's much more interesting to talk to the younger audience, which is also means that you have to communicate in different ways, but also I think that's where the membership idea becomes fundamental, because you have to think about relationships in a different way if you want to attract a younger audience, and especially if you want them to pay for what you're doing. We are 100% transparent. That's also something I will be saying a little bit about. But it also means that there are no questions that you can ask. I dare you to figure out a question that I won't answer truthfully. Also around our financials and monthly churn and whatever. We are 100% transparent. Right now, we are just almost at the 14,000 paying members, typically paying 17 euro a month. And we are just about to be a profitable business, which of course is a very big thing for a young company like us. The way we publish, just to give an idea about that, is we publish very little, 2 to 3 stories every day, but we try to make them, whatever we publish, as valuable as possible. So of course, that's part of being a young company and thinking like a startup, is that we are not afraid to look at data and make choices on that. Also including core editorial decisions. For instance, we used to do stories on sport, but we could see that a lot of our members didn't attach enough value to our sports stories, so we simply cut it away. And now we only very, very rarely do stories that have to do with sports. So that's part of I would say publishing fewer stories, which I think almost all of the news and journalism business think about doing, because we are all fighting for attention. So the idea of publishing a lot can actually be part of the problem. But of course, it means that you have to be much more careful about what you publish. We say that we cover everything in theory. We could also cover sport if we think the stories are important enough, but we will only do what we promise are need to know stories, and that's a very difficult thing. And if you want, we can talk about what that means. But that is our promise, is that we will only disturb you and demand your attention if we have something important to say. I have something. The video is free here, so could I just get could I be told on a chat if this is working okay? Paulina?
Yeah. I'm here.
Okay. Just checking. You know, it's like when you're talking to your mother on the phone and she's very quiet, and then suddenly you're afraid that she's dead or something. Okay, so I'll get back to my point.
Yeah.
So our stories, we promise are need to know. And what happens in the journalistic process is that if you take away all the nice to know stuff, or if you ask yourself why do we want people to spend time with this story, you will actually end up killing 90% of your ideas, which is for us is a big strength, because then we'll only focus on the 10% of our ideas that are actually worthy of our members' attention, and they're living very busy lives. Our other promise, which is something we also communicate, is that our stories are told by professionals that are passionate about what they're doing. So I'll get to audio in a little while, which is one of our points. But it's very important, this point with who are telling the stories, because people do not, I believe, you do not move into a community around a business or even an idea or a product. It's always joining people. That's how communities grow. So the idea of presenting yourself as people has actually been one of the most important findings for us in marketing, and it's almost ridiculous, which is that we had a tendency to talk about ideas and products, and some of the things that started working was when we started showing ourselves, the people that we were, and it turned out that instead of talking about passion, you just need to show your passion, and then it doesn't, the rest will follow. As I mentioned, I will just to hammer down that point. We have a young audience. They are young, they're typically educated, and they have a pre-existing interest in society. That's how we describe our target group. And of course, they are digital, but all young people are digital. What you see in the bottom right is actually one of our ads. You can say one of the ways we present ourselves on social media, for instance. And if you notice, it was simply, you can say, I'll just do it from before. It was simply members, and what they're saying is why a Zetland is important to them. And we are working with many different iterations of how to show our community, which is, I think, is an important point as well that I can get back to. These we've done, I don't know, hundreds of different types of video ads on, maybe not hundreds, but many types of ads on Facebook, and we have never had as much success as with the videos that simply presents the community, presents the people that believe in our ideas. So a part of our identity, if we set aside the mission and the people, is also our technology, or our design in a different way. We built our site with people that had no background in the news industry. It was a product owner that came from sorry, that had audio on it. I don't know if you could hear that. Anyway, we built it with designers and the people that didn't come from news backgrounds, simply to help us build something that felt different, that felt different from news sites, and that had us in it. So that goes into like every single detail. So just rerun it. What you see in the bottom side is what happens when you open our app. So this little happy smiley face will show up and say good morning or good afternoon, or whatever time of day it is. So our values and the relations, the feelings we want to have in the relationship with the people, that goes into everything, including the design and the visuals, and of course our tone of voice, which is something I'll get back to as well. Okay, so just the story behind our success and how that ties together with community building. A few years ago, in 2016, we were launched. We were doing a great journalism. We were in many ways considered a success story, because the Danish media market is just a terrible place to run a media startup. It is small. There are less than 6 million people in Denmark, but there are a lot of news outlets, and we have this very big public broadcaster, DR, which is great and which is free and which everybody uses. So getting people to pay for journalism in Denmark, especially young people, is a huge challenge, and they have many choices, you can say. So in a way, we could see we were doing something that was relevant, but at the same time, our members were saying that they liked what we were doing. The people we had inside our house, they liked us, but they left us because they didn't feel that they used us enough. So at that point, our relationship to our members was still in a lot of ways built around a product. We are selling journalism. And when you sell journalism in this attention economy, you're always in a dangerous place, because you're fighting every day against YouTube and Netflix, and especially with the young audience, and of course podcasts, in the free podcasts from around the world. So building your story around a product is just not a good place to be. And also, we had a very hard time getting people to understand how we were different. All the things I just said, We are a news company for people that feel overwhelmed with news, who's tired of breaking news. It's a very difficult message, because most people will simply see, oh, that's more journalism, that's more news. I have more news in my life than I can handle to begin with. So we were in a very difficult spot. That's where the community we had became part of our solution. So maybe some of you, I have been told, are thinking about Kickstarter campaigns. And we get a lot of questions about how to do campaigns. I'll get back to the campaign we just did recently as an existing company. I think one of the big mistakes with Kickstarter campaigns when they don't succeed is trying to build a community without having a community. In the end, we might be aiming for a big community, but there's a great value in having a small community to begin with. It might be 200 people, it might be 50 people, but those are the people that will help you on what stories to tell and how to tell them and how to do your product. So even though we were struggling at that time, as like financially, we had a lot of true believers who knew us and who understood us and who had been with us for a long time. And they were telling us, you should move into audio. That reason we feel like we don't get to use. Maybe that could be part of the solution. Then we used the community to test how to do audio. So we asked, first we built something and we showed different formats to people that we got together physically, but after it we invited people to be beta testers. So we had, at that time, I think we had 100 or 200 members who would try with our test product in audio, and that was how we figured out exactly how to do that project, which turned out to be very important for us. And I think if we were to start over, we also started with the Kickstarter campaign to begin with. I would put much more effort into not making it, not building the campaign from whatever we could figure out in a meeting room, 5 people, but to build it with the community. And there are many ways to do that, as I'm sure you can imagine. So just to run over the results real quick, we launched in summer of 17, and we've quickly figured out that with the type of journalism we were doing, it was obvious to have these passionate people that we had working for us, to have them narrate the stories themselves. And we trained them with actors, and we taught them how to edit audio, and we spent a lot of effort in helping them do it right, because they were writing journalists. As it turned out, and which we learned in written journalism, in live journalism, is that most people that can tell stories in writing can actually tell stories in different ways, also typically orally. And we built an app that made the experience great, the user experience. And what happened was that within 4 months, or 4 or 5 months, more than 50% of the consumption of what ZDNet was doing was audio. So in less than 6 months, we had pivoted from being a newspaper that old-fashioned digital newspaper to being an audio company. And that was only possible because we were working with the community. And by doing this, we were also, by following their advice, we were also making a much more powerful community. And we hadn't. The funny part is we didn't really understand the thing about this. and just to show right now, today we are at 70% audio, and I think actually that's a different that's a different point that doesn't necessarily have to do with community building, which is that I think a lot of people should be thinking about audio and this graph basically, because I think a lot of that this can easily be copied. So that helped our business, as you can imagine. Churn went down. We could easily get new the customers. All our members used our platform more. And this is just to say this is how our membership base grew. But this is the more important point in when we're talking about community, because what happened with us being much easier to feel as people was that our members got a much better feeling of they got a much stronger relationship to us as people. And this is of course the holy grail of community. This leads to commitment and willingness to pay and loyalty in the end. And this again, this was audio was how we succeeded in building this relationship for real. And there are many other ways to do it. You can do involvement involving your community in the editorial work, which is something we do, but it's not our main focus. That's something like Krautreporter in Germany, where I have been more focused on that, for instance. You can do it with video, which is something we started to do. I think basically one point is that the hardest way to do it is actually to do it in writing, or to do it in emails. And events, of course, which I will get back to, are also very important. So this relationship led us to in 2018. So that's the year before the August campaign this year. We decided to test a large-scale ambassador campaign. Because we had, from the beginning, we had thought about building community, like the idea of you could help Zetland, you could be an ambassador for Zetland if you wanted, you could engage with our journalists in many ways to build it into a platform. But at the end, we saw that if you want to do campaigns, and that goes for Kickstarter, so for campaigns in general, and to have the membership fueled, you need to build a narrative around it and to build a story around it, and that needs drama, and it needs to have a beginning and an end. So we tested that in 2018, where we just said that all our members could be within 1 month could give away free passes to try Zetland, which is otherwise always a paid experience if you want the full package. So at that time, they actually got 7,000 people invited into Zetland, but they were free passes. So only about half of the people that got the free passes actually started using our journalism. And in the end, we converted around 8% of them into paying members, which was great for us at the time. But we figured out that this could be done in a much more professional way if we also looked at other businesses that have been very good at building communities. We've been inspired by something like Brewdog, if you know it, the British beer brewing company, which have built like an incredible membership base, and who subscribe to beer, and who are on fire, and they are great beer, but that's like the mission, and they have great success. And the way they do it is to build a very strong narrative around what they're doing and around the campaigns that they're doing. So this year, We ran a campaign in August, but actually we started the campaign. We started planning it in the beginning of the year, and we launched it in the end of the spring this year. And it was all according to a plan, because if we wanted to activate our community and help them grow and to take the relationships we had and make them much stronger, we needed a story. And for us, that story was making sure that our core members knew our mission. We had been working on that during the spring, where there was the big election in Denmark, and all our communication in the election cycle was about, we need a new type of political journalism. Old political journalism is broke. So this is why we need to make it different, and this is how we are solving the problem. So all of our communication was mission driven, and it was to attract new customers, you can say, but it was also educating every day our existing members in our mission. So on the back of that, in the early June, I did a very well prepared story, which was based on what we call radical transparency, which we were very inspired, I would say, by Republik in Switzerland, which I've been and to some part the correspondent in the Netherlands, but especially Republik have been radically transparent, including about their numbers and their economics, and also about what is difficult, because there needs to be in the story you tell, there needs to be urgency. There needs to both be passion and energy, which are positive emotions. But if you want urgency, you need to balance that with a story about something being at stake. And I was very worried as the CEO, because it feels like undressing yourself to say, all right, this is the amount of money that we make, this is the amount of money that we spend, this is why we spend that much money doing our journalism. So we are losing right now. We are losing quite a lot of money every month. We are also making a lot of money. We are not like we are not nowhere. We have support. We have you, but we need you to push us to this point for us to have a great future. We were tiptoeing, because we didn't want to say that if you don't help us, we will crash, because that's not a great story necessarily, and it wasn't true. We would maybe have to sell Zetland in the end if we didn't succeeding with growing, sell us to a corporate company, which would be terrible, but not death. But we were very honest about saying, we need to move and we need your help. Otherwise, things will have to change, and you won't get the Zetland, or and you won't be supporting the mission that you believe in, that you just experienced during the election cycle. So we ran a series of stories where we were radically transparent. I did stories about our business and our history, like the backstory in some ways, and then Leah, who is my co-founder and editor-in-chief, who is with the yellow background on the picture. She did stories, very, very powerful audio stories, but we also did text versions, as we always do, about how we were feeling, basically. So we did one podcast especially, which was about how worn down we were after doing Zetland for 3.5 years, and still losing money, to be almost there, always being like almost there for that long time. It's awful. And sometimes you are about to, it feels like you're about to die, or you want to quit, and sometimes you're fighting we hadn't been so bad, but of course along the way you have get conflict, and especially if you just get so tired that you want to lie down and cry. And as I'm telling you this story here, that's how she told that story. Also talk where we're just talking to each other, and we got quite personal about things. But again, that's part of building urgency, is to you need a mission, but you need the people. You need the people that are carrying the mission, and you need to be very open. I believe, at least I know other people are building communities in different ways. I know Adidas and whatever few companies are doing other things, but again, they're recruiting ambassadors, so they can be the front of the community. So what we did in all the stories was to say, so at the end of this story, or again after this transparency, if you are motivated to help us, then join us as an ambassador. And within weeks, we had gotten about 1,000 people to sign up as ambassadors. And what we did was to say, okay, they're emotionally engaged with the story we're telling, and they feel they might have a part to play. And then the moment when they push the button to say, oh, let me be an ambassador, we are trying to pull them in. How we did that was simply by having a type form that asked them questions and put them at the center of the campaign. So how do you want to help us? We have these options, but do you want us to send you posters? Do you want to be a digital ambassador? Do you want us to do this? We have these ideas. Do they seem good to you? Do you have ideas? And many things. And at the end of our ambassadors spent 14 minutes on average doing the type form. And I think when they pushed the button, they weren't expecting to spend that much time, but we made certain that they felt like this was about them. They could feel us in our tone of voice and in pictures and videos along in the questionnaire, but we were there to ask them stuff, to make them important. And we offered to mail them stuff. And I don't think it wasn't the most important, most successful part of the campaign. We sent them cards they could hand out with their little code, ambassador code on, and posters they could put up places. But simply saying, we will sit in our office and we will package these things and send them to you. That offer in itself is showing this is how important you are. And of course, when we then sent them the posters and stuff, we had sent them gifts, stickers and stuff, and then a little bag of seeds for this little onion thing that I don't know what's called in English, but that you can put on potatoes if you eat them, so that they could plant in their home, just as a silly gift, again, to make it feel like we are not, Adidas or Coca-Cola or whatever. So at the end of the day, we succeeded in growing, as it says, 25% in a single month. And I would think that if we had known, if we had all the tools, and we have been better at telling a story, and especially using other means, audio, using videos to tell stories, I think we would have, back when we did the Kickstarter, we could have grown to maybe 8,000 members right out of the bat, just from launching in the small Danish market. So that's the story. Of course, I can show you some of the videos if you're interested. But just to take that point, in every one thing is to get you can use videos to on Facebook, of course, as marketing. But the fun part is that if you're starting to build a relationship, and you send an email to people with a video in it, and that's simply the message is in the video, and you already have a relationship, you'll get, that was our experience, you'll get a majority to actually watch the video. And if it's less than a few minutes or 3 minutes, they will watch it to the end. And that is, I think that's going from email. That's the best next step from email, because you can help them understand the mission, and it's the best way to get to know you as people. As I was just, I think this was just beginning. So this is for instance a video that the members asked for, where they say, could you please make a 90-second pitch for us to explain Zetland to other people? And and of course we went straight in and made that video where Lea pitched Zetland in 90 seconds. And the following day we could post it to all the ambassadors and say, here's a video, use it if you want. But we could also say, you asked for this yesterday, here it is. Again, always communicating, you are at the center of the campaign and the mission. We are basically just tools for you and this larger mission that you believe in. In the bottom right, there's a picture from an event that we did along the way. We used to do with Zetland, we were some of the pioneers in Europe and the world in doing very large-scale journalistic events. And actually 1,500 people in the Royal Theatre in Copenhagen. But actually now we are doing much smaller events, and just saying the events have the most value if we can get 100 of our core members together. That will make things spread out into the world more than getting 1,000 people to experience something in a theater. So ask about that if you're curious. The picture in the middle is from a Wall of Fame, which we stole from the correspondence campaign in America. So Mikkel, our art director, is writing the names of all our ambassadors, and the woman on the left is a nurse in a hospital in the other end of the country who got permission from the hospital to put up our posters all across the hospital. So that was like the most recent story, and then maybe we can open up for questions if you're all still there, which I really, really hope you are.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Jacob. Thank you. Yes. You can finish your presentation if you want, then we have you in the full screen. And there were 2 questions by the audience. I would like to start with the question asked by Thomas. He said, startup experts say impact and mission don't sell. You need to solve a problem for your target group. What was the motivation for people to support Zetland in the very beginning?
The first thing you said was that mission does not sell?
Yeah,
okay.
Startup experts say. Impact and mission don't sell.
I think that depends on how you frame the mission. Our mission is intimately tied to a problem in people's lives. So of course you can't sell with any mission, but our core mission is to help create a more insightful public conversation in Denmark and the world, because the world is going stupid and the news industry is part of the problem. So that is a mission that I can say most definitely that sells. But of course you need to frame it in a way that resonates with people's people's everyday lives. And so again, how do you frame that? It really helps that if you're in dialogue with the community. So for instance, after we did our original Kickstarter campaign, we offered all the people that had backed us that we would visit them if they could gather 15 people. We would go anywhere in Denmark and we would talk to them. So we had this idea that news gave people a bad conscience. Busy people with young children or careers, they were actually afraid to go to dinner parties on Saturdays and not having an idea that there had been a revolution in Portugal or something. And so we had this idea, and we could talk and we could listen to how people were talking about their problem, how they were perceiving the news and in their lives, and we could use that language. Also, I know from talking to The Guardian, one of how they developed a lot of their language around donors and pledging from listening to what their subscribers and their donors, the words they used. So we were looking for experiences that resonated. We had an idea that we could talk into this people being tired of Facebook, and this idea that Facebook is a double-edged sword. That part of the mission can also sell. So it's about framing your vision in a way that people instantly attach themselves to, because it points to something that they're already feeling or thinking or talking with their friends about.
Would you mind to stop sharing your screen with us? So if you stop your presentation, then we have you on the full screen. Yeah, super. Thank you very much. There was a question by Andreas. Do you have strategies to motivate audiences to participate in creating content for your outlet?
Yes. I would say if people know some of the stuff that The Correspondent is doing in the Netherlands and have been doing from the beginning, we have many of the same ideas, and in that we try to first of all we try to make sure that the discussion around our journalism did not end up looking anything like Facebook. So it's been a problem for us that we how do we actually engage with people on Facebook, because we need people meet us, see us there, and they expect us to be there, but our focus has been on our own platform, and one of the things we do is to frame what people add if they write us as contributions and not comments, and to be very visible in the discussion as well, and all these things. The reason we have a story about being really, really good at this. I think we are only 50% there, but we have done many things. I would say one in 5 stories we do originates from our members. So what we do, our core format is to publish articles that are actually, writer notes. So we would do a calls to arm and say we're working on this problem, and so help us with it. So that I would say that's the main thing that we do on a steady basis. And then we just promoted one of our journalists to only figure out new ways to do this. And what she's doing right now is she's doing micro events all around the country that she's letting the members themselves arrange, and so they're inviting other members to their own homes. But I think that's maybe a different.
Wow! Yeah. Offline events. That might be also a topic that we can discuss. But to make it clear, like, what role does social media play for you connecting with your crowd or with your members? So you do use Facebook or Twitter or Instagram?
Yes.
To get interaction, or what is the main goal?
No, I would say we only use social media as part of our funnel. Okay. I think it's very, very important for us as media entrepreneurs to think heavily about owning the relationship with the people that we are talking with, that are the core of our business. That's also why we say no to all companies that want to use, with one exception, but that wants to use Zetland's journalism on other platforms. Because we are the relationship with our members. So let's in-house that. So the whole idea is that the moment that you get a hook into somebody on social media, you want to get them into your own ecosystem, and get them to communicate on your own platform. We haven't worked with getting people's emails since early on. We stopped doing that at some point. We might start doing it as well, because our long-term plan is to not need Facebook at all. And Facebook is very important for us to get people closer to us, but we would like to not need Facebook, because they're actually, our mission is sort of not great with Facebook in many ways, and they might turn off news or something someday. So the way we use, just to get back to how we use it, our rule is, every time we post something on social media, we want to be there. We want to show ourselves. So if we post something on immigration, we know there's going to be a terrible comment thread probably under it, the way Danish, probably the same in other countries. So we won't spend energy on that, but we will make sure to show that we are there, and to find a way to be open and curious, but not throw ourselves into that. And sometimes we'll even say, when they tell us to defend something, we'll say, we focus on our members. It's going on at Zetland.
Okay. There was also a question by Andreas. Zetland is only in Danish, right? Right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
And are you
yes.
considering to create content in various other languages to engage a larger audience? As I met your co-founder, Lea Korsgaard, 1 year ago in Hamburg at the Voca Innovation Day, she also told me that there are some plans to expand to the other countries around you, so to Norway, Sweden, and Finland. Perhaps you can tell us more about that.
We have also said that we wanted to have a foundation in Denmark before actual doing these plans, but now I can say, as we are almost there, that definitely that is something we want to do in the next phase. But we don't want to start publishing to a global audience in English. We'll let the correspondent try that difficult mission.
Difficult enough.
We think it's difficult. I think what we have succeeded in a smaller language area is actually applicable to many other countries, and not just in Scandinavia. I've talked to people who say that something like what we're doing might be interesting in Southern Europe. The thing is, as I said, people are at the core of explaining what we're trying to do. And we would never try to start in a different country, just with our own thoughts and ideas about how to do it. So what we will need, and that's where we are right now, we need to figure out how to find the people in the relevant markets that could own our mission in Portugal or Sweden or Poland. So we are probably going to think hard about that in a while, and so if any of you know any of these people, I would be very interested in talking to you, because it would be arrogant to think that we could think that we should tell the story in the same way. Even if the mission is the same, it has to be told in a very different way in different countries, and also some of the editorial thinking has to be different as well, I'm sure.
There are two other questions. One concerns your audio content and one your ambassador campaign. Perhaps we can start with the ambassador campaign. When there were 1,000 applications from the community to become ambassadors, did you have problems to absorb that? For example, involve each and every of them? If yes, how did you overcome that?
I think that's a very important question. We used we relied a lot of events, as I said earlier, in all formats to look our members in the eye and to create a relationship. The problems with events is of course, one thing is it does not scale, especially micro events. We're trying to do it now with people around the country, I said, but events don't scale. The way we built the ambassador campaign was always to say we are doing it digitally. The only thing that was manual in a sense was sending out the packages, but the rest of it was always, all the communication went out to all the ambassadors. So it takes, to read through, I just did it again recently, to read through all the ideas that they gave us, it takes about 3 or 4 hours just to read the ideas that our members send us. But what I did was, of course, many of them are the same, but what I did was to pick out the best ideas that had the most people had suggested, and then I wrote them back out and said, here are some of the ideas that you gave us. They came from many people. So again, I'm taking something that's intimate, that's one-to-one, and spreading it out to as many people. And I would say we could have done the same campaign with 4,000 or 8,000 ambassadors, because and video scale as well, everything was scalable. Which was part of the plan. We still want, Republique has this onion metaphor that if you want, we call it like the hot onion principle, that even if you have this big group of 1,000 people, you're going to have, you need a hot onion in the middle if you want the warmth to spread. So even though we have 1,500 ambassadors, I could name 20 of them. Alexandra turned 30 during the campaign, and she only asked for her birthday present that the guests to her birthday party signed up to Zetland, which is like tears, right? And so we were like, Alexandra, can you send us a picture of your birthday party? Which she did, which we then sent out to all the members and said, look what happened. Alexandra asked for Zetland to her birthday party. So we get the stories from the core of the onion, and I'll take the phone anytime if Alexandra calls, and then that spreads out. So it's good to have like a core of people that are the ones you know and meet, because that will spread out. And we do everything we can with the events, for instance, to create more of people in the core that are very, very engaged.
In general, Jacob, what would you say, how important are offline events for a successful media startup? Because you mentioned you had this huge event with 1,500 people at the Royal Theatre. Right now you have smaller events, but perhaps in general, what importance do offline events have for building a sustainable community?
I think right now, one of the reasons we aren't doing as many events is that, and I know I disagree with a lot of people, is that I don't think events is the first thing you should think about when you are where we are right now, because I know people like Financial Times and the big old companies are spending huge amounts of money on events, and we have so limited resources. We have to think about every hour we spend, how does that translate into success? And events are hard to, many events are very hard to do. So I think, and we'll always be doing events. I just would never say it's the most important thing that we're doing, I think. But in the phase where you're building the campaign and you're figuring out what to do, then the events are extremely important, but they're almost more about listening than telling a story. So that's like the real value of the smaller events in that phase. But when I'm saying, so maybe you can, even with all I'm saying, guess what the next big event we're doing is, which is that we're going to, right after New Year's, we're going to spend a shitload of money on the Royal Theatre in Copenhagen and we're going to invite all the ambassadors to see a show, and we'll pay to get them the people from the other end of the country to get them over with buses. And this, of course, that's going to be a big investment. But compared to television commercials or other things we could do, it's actually not going to be that expensive. And if we do that right, we'll have this ambassador group. I think half of them will have them for life. You know, we can ask them to help us anytime if we succeed with that, and that's worth a lot. But those are the types of the events that we want to invest in.
The hot onion.
The hot onion, and if you and this would be like to make like a much bigger, hotter onion. Yeah. It's Richard from Republic who invented this term. It's very good.
Yeah. There was a question by Dominic. He asked it a couple of minutes ago in terms of your audio content. How do you record the articles? How much effort and editing do you put it in? Do you use any music effects or voice snippets, or is it basically a one-take recording and that's it?
There's a practical part of it. We built a little studio within our newsroom, and it's extremely cheap to do today. I think we spent like 3,000 or 4,000 euros on all of it, and the sound quality is perfect. So that's the easy part. We tested that, and we talked with our members about it. We did a survey on it, and they were not interested in added audio and all of these things that we could do. So at the core of it, of our core product, are the articles told by the writers. But it's on purpose that I say that they're told and not read, because what we do is our tone of voice in general at Zetland is to try to sound like people talking, like somebody you know who's smart and interesting. How would they tell you about what's going on in Kurdistan? So that's the tone of voice that we want, and it goes without saying that that's much easier to translate that tone of voice into something that you read, but it sounds like somebody telling a story. And also, by reading all our stories aloud, that tone of voice has gotten stronger. I don't know if any of you have gone to journalism school, but I was taught when I was a young newspaper reporter, to read all my stories aloud. I never did, but I should have, because it really gets you to write better. And then also they begin and end every story. There's an audio, there's a sound, music that starts and ends all the stories, and they always tell something about why they're doing the story, why it was fun, why some fact before and after. It's like a personal intro and outro, but the rest of it would be the story. And then we also do an audio newsletter or like a news podcast, sort of like the Daily from the New York Times, which is an actual podcast and put together with audio. And we'll probably do more of those as well.
Okay. Corinna asks, when presenting your team to your audience and showing your passion, what were your key findings? What worked best? Do you have any other media examples that do a great job at showing their faces?
I would say it's television and YouTube. I think we, coming from a newspaper background, I think there are a lot of things that we struggle to understand sometimes, even though we know it from data, that people, even though they just read stories, they will actually have a much stronger attachment to the one person than to the new media brand. And that's, of course, that's how television is built, with anchors and everything. But I think our primary source of inspiration is, I would say, for me, is YouTube. That you can actually find stories on something like the Vlogbrothers, which I'm very inspired by. It's just like John and Hank Green, anyway, check them out. And they're basically talking to their webcam about important things in the world and answering important questions. And they're just them talking to the webcam. And it'll be like 7 minutes on Syria sometimes, and it works great, and they have millions of views. And it's because there is no filter. So we figured out along the way that we could do advanced explanatory stories about immigration policy in Denmark. But if we took Thomas, who's like bald like me, and he's a little bit nerdy, but he's very interested in statistics, and we got him to like in front of the camera and got him to say, this story was a total surprise to me because I thought this, but then it turned out this about immigration policy. It's more important what happens, what they do in Sweden than what we do in Denmark, was part of that point. That worked, we actually tested it, worked much better than an expensive, hard to do explanatory video. And I think that's us starting to understand how YouTube works, that if people feel a relationship to you, they will watch you do Minecraft on Twitch for 4 hours. If we can get like just a little bit of that into how we can communicate on video, they'll listen to us talking about the European Union for 10 minutes.
It's authentic.
Yes, which is a terrible word. Sometimes it's used as like try to seem authentic, but we forget that, you know, being authentic is being authentic. You know, you have to also be honest about your mistakes and flaws and whatever's going on, right?
Yeah. I would ask you a general question. Is there a key for building a strong community, like a golden recipe, according to your point of view?
It would be like trying to boil together something I've already said, right?
Yeah.
But I think it's this combination of a mission that resonates and making you feel the people behind it. That combination is extremely powerful, and those people might be yourself part of the time, but if you can get it again with the ambassadors, for us, if you can attach the mission to more people, then suddenly again you've also solved some of the problems with scale, because then it's not you doing it, it's everybody doing it, and everybody knows why, which is the mission, right? So I think that's the core idea. And sometimes I can see that people launch Kickstarters also in media, I must say, which is interesting because we should know how to tell stories without the very clear emotional narrative that is the mission, that like defines the mission. And then it's very hard to get the ball rolling. Yeah,
as you said, show your passion, the rest will follow. A really beautiful sentence.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Maybe that's what I should have said.
And what are the main mistakes in terms of community building?
Yeah, we've made mistakes.
No, like
what's the question?
Yeah. Perhaps you did make mistakes, like
we've done 1,000 mistakes. Like for instance, our original 1,400 Kickstarter backers, we threw them under the bus. They never heard from us once, and we thought that they would be very loyal members, and they just they were gone. Because we were like, oh, thank you, you gave us your money, and then we started spending it, and we're building it, and we're doing what you said, right? And it really fills me with I could wake up at night, you know, dream about it. It's like you don't want to be that guy at the party who just runs with the booze or something. I think we really stuck with that. And then for us, which is specific maybe to our mission, but actually we spent a long time until we got the nerve to talk about, to frame our mission as being against something. So for us, actually saying sometimes news sucks. Look at this breaking news, it's ridiculous, which made us not terribly popular in Danish journalism, was also a big part of it. Like we were afraid to sort of embrace how we felt sort of real. So our big mistake often was not being ourselves enough. Like always still trying to sort of have a filter or be like kind of transparent, but let's not get too. That was me originally. Let's not get too vulnerable. But of course, if you're not vulnerable, you're not, you're not relevant.
Yeah, what you mentioned with 100% transparency, right?
Yes.
Yeah. And there was a question by Dominic. Can you give an estimate how much of the effort of the Zetland team measured in time spent goes into content production and how much goes into marketing or member communications?
I would say 2/3 editorial, and the rest is me and I have some people in my campaign. That's like the campaign team. And then we have somebody doing support and somebody doing administration, and then and then we have some tech guys. So maybe 60. I would say 60% of everything goes into journalism.
And do you have special?
But again, it sort of blends together because our mission is journalism. So sometimes it's hard to say if we have our video guy is doing a video about a project we're doing about we need more solutions to our problems and not just talk about the problems. Is that editorial or is that marketing or is that a campaign? It's probably all of those things at the same time. And I think that's where you want to be, where you don't have that separation, but you're all doing the same thing, but in different ways.
And do you have a special audience engagement manager who cares only, about the community and the communication with the crowd?
Yes, that's Sarah, but she has only been like 50% of her time is dedicated to that, and that's just begun a few months ago. And then we have a support person who makes sure to interact with people all the time.
Okay. There are no other questions left in the chat window. I have 2 or 3 questions on my paper that I prepared. Is there anything that surprised you most in the past 3 years that you've co-founded Zetland?
Regarding community or everything, I would say back when we launched, I was surprised that I don't know if I must be stupid, but I was surprised that we didn't just win. Like we had published journalism before, and we were like, God, we're doing great journalism. And then we started thinking about how to communicate more to people and doing the right thing. And we thought we had it when we launched Zetland in 2016. And of course, not of course, but like we started like this, and then it was just like we were growing really slowly. And I have to say that actually did surprise me. And our investors said afterwards, "Oh, of course it's like that. It's going to be twice as hard. It's going to be take twice as much time, and you're going to figure out along the way how to actually do it." And I have to say, I was stupid. I was actually surprised. It was much harder than I thought. And the second thing was I would say, and the most important thing was basically the audio thing, because we knew we were doing something that was relevant, but that we were going to be an audio company overnight. That totally blew our mind.
Mm-hmm. And what do you think? What can legacy media learn from media startups like Zetland in terms of building a sustainable community?
Everything, because they usually are very
because
except
they
for
don't
like the Guardian and the Guardian and Financial Times and everybody. Still, I know tiny operations that write better emails than most legacy media do in Denmark. I don't even know where to begin. I think.
Isn't there a trend for the traditional publishing houses, to launch membership campaigns?
Yes, but again, they often seem very focused on the media themselves. Like we are saving journalism. We are an important newspaper, so help us. Yeah. And like, who cares about journalism? Journalists care about journalism, but we need a different story for it to be relevant. But I think it's funny that the legacy newspaper that's best at it is actually the New York Times which is ridiculous because it's so big. But what they're doing with the Daily, for instance, the Daily News podcast, is to make their passionate people visible. You still can't see them when you're reading a newspaper, but they're starting to, and they have figured out that people have no idea who's making the newspaper, what's put into it, how passionate they are. And they're starting to think a lot about how to make it visible, that you're actually you're not just buying this thing, you're supporting a universe. You're helping an army of people trying to shape the world with truth. And I think that would be my first step in legacy media, was to make sure that people get a much stronger sense of the why, because legacy media tend to take that for granted. We are journalists. We need to be here, so give us money.
Yeah. So if there is another question by you, audience, you can ask it right now. We have 5 minutes left. And perhaps you can give a last tip when other media startups are preparing an ambassador campaign, for example, in their country, what they should bear in mind, what should they consider when they are preparing the campaign?
I would definitely say my point was to attract whatever community that you have already, and think of when you launch the campaign, that's almost the end of a process and not the beginning of it. So you might have some ideas about what you're going to say and why you're going to say it and how you're going to do it, but begin by gathering people digitally or in person or however you can, and build something with them, because you'll definitely get a clearer picture of how to succeed, and also you're building the core of the community at the same time, because people love to be part of something, and that's when they can really be part of something. So I think I know a lot of Kickstarter campaigns where they knew at the end what they should have done at the beginning, and that's a sad place to be.
What is the main challenge right now at Zetland?
That's actually right now. It's actually making our journalism better. I think we're sometimes so good at the messages that we really have to make sure that our everyday journalism lives up to those messages. So we've been running on a startup energy for 3.5 years, and that will wear people down at some point. So we need to build an organization that can actually do great journalism every day without people falling over around us. So that's part of it. And the next part I would say is we want to like continue the path, so we actually make money that we can invest into other countries' new stuff.
So the very last question, Jacob, is like, where do you see Zetland in about 2 years?
I would say in 3 new countries would be like my favorite answer, and then maybe with a video operation aimed at the very young. I think like thinking more about how to talk to the YouTube generation with serious journalism. I would like for us to be able to be pioneers in that, because I think it's possible.
And do you want to grow, like even more members?
Oh,
20,000, 25,000.
Our new goal. Everything we say to ourselves is, what does our organization need to look like? How do we publish? What do we publish for us to reach 40,000 members? That's 1% of the Danish population.
Okay.
40,000, 1% of Denmark, of the grown-up population in Denmark. That has to be possible. That's my editor Leah, our editor-in-chief, always says that. It's just like for her, it's the rule. 1%, that's possible.
Until the end of 2023, or?
No, you said. I think did you say 3 years? I think that's
ambitious.
reasonable if a bit ambitious.
Okay, good. Thank you very much, Jacob. Thank you very much for the presentation. Thank you to the participants for your interesting questions. And the last webinar will take place in November. It will be about cooperations. So the last words will come from our host, from Lisa Richter from the Bosch Alumni Network.